The twin suns of Arian 9 blazed in the sky, casting long shadows across the endless golden desert. The air shimmered with heat, and not a single cloud gave mercy. The land was dry, cracked, and silent, except for the wind carrying fine sand, like sharp whispers through the air. Suddenly, a roaring sound split the silence. A Royal Ilarian cruiser tore through the sky, spiraling out of control. Sparks flew from its engines. Smoke trailed behind. Inside the ship, alarms screamed. Panels flickered red. Princess Valari of Alaris, dressed in silver robes and jeweled armor, held tightly to her seat. Her eyes were wide but calm. Around her, guards tried to stabilize the systems. "Stabilizers offline," shouted the pilot. "We're going down." "No distress signal?" she asked. "Blocked by atmosphere." "I'm sorry, Princess." Then, impact. The ship smashed into the desert, plowing through sand dunes like a comet. Metal bent, glass shattered. Silence returned. Moments passed. Then a hand moved. Valari slowly pushed herself out of her seat. Her hair was tangled and her silver robe was torn at the shoulder. Blood dripped from a cut near her brow. Around her, silence. The guards were motionless. The pilot was gone. The cruiser was broken, half buried in sand. She stepped out into the desert, shielding her eyes from the blinding sun. The wind bit into her skin. Her boots sank into soft sand. The ship's emergency beacon was dead. There was no signal, no help. For the first time in her life, Princess Valari was alone. Far away on a rocky ridge above the sand dunes, Jace Rourke sat beside his hoverbike, using his old binoculars. He was a human desert scout, rough, quiet, and always alone. He had seen the crash. He had followed the smoke trail. Through his lenses, he saw the figure, tall, thin, elegant, walking weakly through the sand. She looked strange, alien. Her skin was pale violet, her eyes bright like stars. Her royal outfit shimmered, even in ruin. Jace muttered to himself, "That's not from around here." He packed his gear, strapped on his water pack, and began his slow climb down the ridge. Hours passed. The sun moved higher, crueler. Valari stumbled, her body weakening. Her lips were dry, her breath short. Her royal training had taught her many things: diplomacy, languages, strategy, but not how to survive in a burning wasteland. She fell to her knees. That's when she heard footsteps. Her hand moved slowly to the hidden blade at her side. "Don't come closer," she warned, her voice hoarse. "I'm not here to hurt you," came the voice, a calm, quiet human voice. She looked up. The man standing before her was tall, dusty, and sunburned. His clothes were rough, desert gear patched many times. His hair was dark, his eyes unreadable. He looked like someone who had seen many battles and didn't talk about them. He took off his water flask and offered it to her. She stared at it. Why are you helping me?" "You're about to pass out," he said. "No one survives this heat without water." She hesitated, then grabbed the flask and drank. It was warm, but life-saving. He waited, watching her carefully. "You're not from around here." "I am Princess Valari of House Jalaris," she said with pride, even though her voice trembled. "Daughter of the High Sun Lord, and I demand to be returned to my people at once." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Sure, but first we get you out of this sun." She frowned. "You don't fear me?" "No," he said simply. "You're the one who crashed." By nightfall they had made camp under a rocky overhang. The desert turned cold quickly, and Valari sat by the small fire Jace built. She had never been so close to a human before. She watched him silently, how he moved, how he stayed quiet, how he shared his food without asking anything in return. "You live out here?" she finally asked. Jace nodded. "Scout, map the lands, fix what others leave broken." "Why are you alone?" He didn't answer. Valari looked down at her torn robes, at her dusty hands. "My people think humans are primitive, unpredictable." He smirked. "Sounds fair. But you gave me water, she whispered. He looked at her seriously. Out. Here you help who needs help. Doesn't matter what they look like. For the first time, the proud alien princess didn't know what to say, and for the first time, in the silence of the desert night, she felt something strange, a quiet respect for a human. The desert dawn broke slowly over the sand dunes of Arion 9. The twin suns rose, casting soft orange light across the rocky outcrop where Valari and Jace had made their camp. The cold night air had given way to the harsh heat of day, again. Princess Valari awoke with a dry throat and heavy limbs. She looked around the small campfire, now just glowing embers. Jace was already awake, sitting silently and watching the horizon. His eyes were sharp and alert, as if he was always waiting for danger. Valari tried to move, but pain ran through her body. The crash had left bruises and scrapes she had not yet noticed. She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her situation. She was far from the golden halls of her palace, lost in a foreign desert. Jace noticed her stirring. You should rest, he said softly, his voice low and steady. I cannot, Valari answered. I must find a way home. Jace shook his head. You won't last long out here without help. Let me take care of you. Valari looked at him unsure. Her royal pride told her to refuse aid from a human, especially a stranger. But the desert was unforgiving and her strength was weak. She nodded slowly. Jace packed their few supplies and prepared to move. The desert was vast and full of dangers. Sandstorms, venomous creatures, and hidden traps left by ancient civilizations. But Jace knew the land. He had grown up in the border colonies and learned to survive where few dared. Can you walk? Jace asked. Valari tried. Her legs trembled, but she stood. I will do what I must. Together they moved away from the crash site, leaving the broken cruiser behind. The desert stretched before them, an ocean of shifting sand. As they walked, Valari studied Jace quietly. He did not speak much, but his eyes never stopped scanning their surroundings. She saw the deep lines on his face, the scars on his hands, and the way he moved with careful strength. Why do you help me? She asked after a long silence. Jace shrugged. Because it's right. Because I've seen what happens when people don't help each other. Valari thought about her own world, full of politics and power, where loyalty was bought and trust was rare. Here in the desert, things seemed simpler but harder. The sun climbed higher. The heat grew unbearable. Valari's silver robes offered little protection. The desert air burned her skin. Jace took off his jacket and handed it to her. Wear this, he said. It'll protect you from the sun. She hesitated, then accepted. The rough cloth felt strange against her delicate skin, but she did not argue. Hours passed. Valari's steps slowed. She stumbled once and fell into the sand. Jace caught her before she could hit the ground. Don't give up, he said. We're close to a settlement, I promise. Valari looked up at him, his face serious and kind. She nodded, gathering strength. Suddenly, dark clouds began to roll in. The wind picked up, lifting sand into the air like a storm of tiny knives. Valari's heart pounded. Sandstorms on Arion 9 could be deadly. We need shelter, Jace shouted over the wind. They spotted a small cave carved into the rocks nearby. Jace helped Valari inside. The storm hit with full force, sand blasting against the cave's mouth, howling like a wild beast. Inside, they huddled together, the fire Jace had started now long gone. Valari wrapped Jace's jacket tighter around her. The storm raged outside, trapping them in silence. Hours later, the storm passed. The sun returned, but the desert was changed. The sand reshaped, the air dusty and heavy. Valari's throat was sore and her body was tired, but she felt something new, a quiet bond with the human beside her. Thank you, she said softly. Jace smiled for the first time. You don't have to thank me. Valari looked at him carefully. I thought humans and Ilarian nobles would never understand each other. Jace shrugged. Maybe we don't, But maybe that's why we need to try. Valari smiled faintly, feeling hope she had never known. The next day, Jace led Valari toward a small human outpost hidden among rocky hills. It was a simple place: metal buildings, solar panels, and a few scattered vehicles. Humans moved with purpose, but with kindness in their eyes. At the gate, the guards looked surprised to see Valari. Her royal appearance stood out among the dust-covered humans. Jace explained their story briefly, and the guards allowed them in. Inside the outpost, Valari was given water, food, and a quiet place to rest. The humans looked at her with curiosity and respect. For the first time, she felt safe. Not as a princess, but as a person. That night, Valari stood outside the outpost looking at the stars above the desert. The twin moons shone softly. Jace joined her quietly. "Do you regret trusting me?" he asked. Valari shook her head. "No, you saved me. Not just from the desert, but from my own fear." Jace smiled. "Maybe we're both stronger than we think." She looked at him, the man who had come from the harsh desert to rescue an alien princess. For the first time, she saw a future beyond her palace walls, one where humans and aliens might walk side by side. The desert had changed her. So had Jace. The small human outpost on Area 9 was quiet during the day, a calm oasis in the middle of the endless desert. Princess Valari stayed inside the simple building the humans had given her, a shelter filled with soft mats, clean water, and a small window that looked out at the dunes. She sat by the window, watching the desert shift and change under the hot sun. Her torn robes had been replaced with lighter clothes, simple and practical, not royal at all. She still wore a thin silver necklace, a small reminder of her home, but her mind was restless. She had survived the crash in the harsh desert, thanks to the human named Jace. Yet she barely knew anything about him. Jace rarely spoke, and when he did, his words were short and careful. He kept to himself, helping the outpost with repairs, or scouting the nearby lands. He moved with quiet confidence, like someone who had learned to trust only himself. Valari found herself watching him often, fascinated by his strength and calm. He was unlike any noble she had met in her palace, where most people were loud and proud. Jace was strong but silent, simple but brave. One evening, the sun dipped low, turning the sky orange and purple. Valari found Jace sitting outside the outpost, polishing his worn boots. She took a deep breath and walked over. "Why do you stay here? In this desert, all alone?" she asked softly. Jace looked up, surprised to see her. "It's the only place, I know. This land is harsh but honest. It doesn't pretend." Valari nodded slowly. "I come from a world of silver towers and endless rules. It feels like a cage." Jace smiled a little. "Maybe this desert is a kind of freedom." They sat in silence for a moment, the desert breeze cool against their faces. Over the next few days, Valari learned more about the humans who lived in the outpost. They were simple people, far from the powerful cities of the galaxy. They worked hard, helped each other, and shared everything they had. Valari shared stories of her own world, the great palaces, the shining ships, and the complicated politics. The humans listened with wide eyes but never judged. One afternoon, Jace invited Valari to come with him on a scouting trip beyond the outpost. She hesitated. Her body was still weak. But the thought of seeing more of the desert excited her. Together, they rode on Jace's hoverbike, speeding over the sand dunes. The wind whipped past Valari's face. For the first time since the crash, she felt alive. As they stopped near a rocky ridge, Jace pointed to the horizon. Out there, beyond the dunes, is a valley where rare plants grow. It's a place most people don't visit. Valari looked and smiled. "You show me your world," Jace shrugged. "You showed me yours." That night they camped under the stars. The twin moons of Area 9 shone bright above. Valari sat by the fire, her face lit by the dancing flames. Jace sat beside her, quiet as always. "Do you miss your home?" Jace asked. Valari thought for a moment. "Yes, but I also feel something new. Something I cannot explain. Jace nodded. The desert changes people. It teaches you to be strong, to trust, to survive. She looked at him closely. I was taught that humans are wild, unpredictable, that we should fear them. Jace smiled softly. Maybe some are, but not all. Valari's heart beat faster. She had never spoken like this before, not even with her closest advisors. In the days that followed, Valari's health improved. She walked farther, learned to move over the sand without sinking. Jace taught her how to find water from plants, how to listen to the wind for signs of danger. Slowly, a bond grew between them, not of words, but of trust and quiet understanding. One afternoon, as they rested near a small oasis, Valari looked at Jace and smiled. You are not what I expected. Jace grinned. Neither are you. She laughed softly, the sound rare and beautiful. Maybe we can teach each other. But even in this quiet peace, danger loomed. Far away, across the galaxy, the Alarian Empire was preparing to send search teams. They blamed humans for the crash and suspected foul play. The Empire would stop at nothing to find their lost princess. Back in the desert, Valari and Jace did not know what the future held. But for now, in the silence of the dunes, two strangers, one alien princess, one human scout, shared a moment of peace where beauty and strength crossed the boundaries of worlds. The desert sun blazed hotter than ever as Valari and Jace moved carefully across the shifting dunes. The quiet peace they had shared was about to be broken. Far beyond the desert, in the cold halls of the Alarian Empire, a group of high-ranking officials gathered. They were angry and worried. Their princess was missing, and the crash on a human planet made them suspicious. We must find Princess Valari at once, said the High Commander. Send our best trackers and mercenaries. They will bring her home, dead or alive. The room fell silent. No one wanted to admit the truth. The desert was dangerous, and humans were unpredictable. But the mission was clear. Back in the desert, Valari and Jace had begun a slow journey toward the nearest human city, a place called Haven. Valari's health was stronger now, but her spirit was uneasy. She had heard distant rumors of Ilarian search teams. Jace noticed her worry. We're not alone, he said quietly. I've seen tracks. People following us. Valari's eyes darkened. They will kill you if they find you with me. Jace shrugged, but his hand moved to the small knife at his belt. Then they'll have to get through me first. That evening, as the twin moons rose, the desert air grew cold. Valari and Jace made camp in a narrow canyon, hidden from view. Suddenly, movement caught Jace's eye. Shadows shifted in the distance, figures moving with careful steps. Enemy scouts, Jace whispered. Valari reached for the small blade she always carried. We must prepare. The two moved silently, hiding among the rocks. The scouts approached, slowly, unaware of Valari and Jace's presence. They wore dark armor and carried strange weapons. Valari's heart raced. Jace signaled to her. Stay quiet. Let me handle this. The scouts stopped nearby, talking in low voices. The princess must be close, one said. We cannot lose her. Jace waited until one scout stepped too close, then struck swiftly. A short fight followed. Jace's combat skills surprised Valari. He was fast, precise, and brave. In minutes, the scouts were defeated, their bodies hidden among the rocks, their weapons taken by Jace. Valari looked at Jace with new respect. You fight well. Jace smiled tiredly. I've had to. The next morning, they pushed on toward Haven. Valari's thoughts raced. She realized how fragile their safety was, how close danger always waited. At the edge of the city, they paused. Haven was a bustling place, markets filled with alien and human traders, airships rising and falling, lights and sounds everywhere. Jace took Valari's hand. Stay close, we need to find help. They moved through the crowd, careful to avoid attention. Valari noticed how people looked at her, curious, surprised, even admiring. Her beauty was unlike anything they had seen. But Valari felt strange. She was no longer a princess surrounded by guards. Here she was just a stranger in a strange city. They found a healer who agreed to help Valari recover fully. As she rested, Jace left to gather information about the Ilarian trackers. Days passed. Valari grew stronger, but worry deepened. The Empire's forces were closing in. One evening, Jace returned with news. "They've sent a large team. They'll arrive soon." Valari stood, determination shining in her violet eyes. "Then we must be ready." In the days that followed, Valari trained with Jace. She learned how to defend herself with a blade, how to move silently, and how to read the desert signs. Jace admired her courage. "You are not just a princess," he said. "You're a fighter." Valari smiled. "I must be." When the trackers finally arrived, the desert shook with the sound of their ships. Valari and Jace waited in the shadows, ready to face the coming storm. The hunt had begun. The sun rose fiercely over the desert city of Haven, bathing the streets in golden light. The arrival of the Ilarian trackers was no longer just a threat whispered in shadows. It was now a reality pounding at the city's gates. Princess Valari stood beside Jace on a rooftop overlooking the busy marketplace. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon, where a fleet of sleek ships descended with precision. The trackers were organized, well-armed, and determined to reclaim their princess. "We can't hide forever," Valari said, her voice steady but firm. "They will find us." Jace tightened his grip on the small blade at his side. "Then we face them head-on, together." The city below was filled with humans and aliens alike. Traders shouted their wares, children chased each other, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Yet beneath the everyday life, a silent tension grew like a storm. Valari and Jace moved through narrow alleys, alert to every sound. The trackers spread out, their dark uniforms and advanced weapons marking them clearly. As the first squad passed near, Valari slipped into the shadows. She could feel the heat of the suns on her skin and the beat of her own heart, strong, steady. Suddenly a sharp cry echoed from a nearby street. Jace dashed forward, Valari close behind. They found a small group of trackers surrounding a group of innocent civilians. The trackers' weapons were raised, and fear was written on the faces of the crowd. "Back off," Jace shouted, stepping between the trackers and the people. The trackers turned, surprised to see resistance. Valari drew her blade, its silver edge catching the sunlight. "Leave these people alone. I am Valari of Alaris, and I will not let you harm them." The leader of the trackers laughed coldly. "You may be their princess, but here you answer to us." The fight was quick and fierce. Jace moved like a shadow, fast, precise. Valari, though new to combat, fought with the strength of desperation and courage. Their bond grew deeper with every clash. The trackers were powerful, but they did not expect the fierce spirit of the desert princess and her human ally. Slowly, the tide turned. After the battle, the citizens gathered around Valari and Jace. Whispers spread quickly. An alien princess had come to protect the city. Her beauty and bravery became impossible to ignore. Valari stood tall, not as a trapped noble, but as a leader. She looked at the crowd and spoke softly. "We must stand together, humans and aliens alike. Only together can we survive the dangers ahead." The crowd cheered, their voices rising in hope. That night, under the light of the twin moons, Valari and Jace planned their next move. The trackers would return with more forces. They needed allies. "We can't do this alone," Valari said. "We must reach out to the desert clans and other outposts." Jace nodded. "I know people who owe me favors. We'll call them." Their journey was far from over, but the princess was no longer alone. In the desert, beauty was no longer just a sign of royalty. It was a symbol of strength, courage, and hope. Valari's grace was undeniable, but it was her spirit, unbreakable, and fierce, that truly shone. The desert night was cold and silent, but beneath the stars, plans were being made. Valari and Jace sat in a quiet room inside the human city of Haven, maps spread before them. The flickering light of a small lamp cast shadows on their determined faces. "We need help from the desert clans," Jace said, tracing a route with his finger. "They control the land beyond the city. If they join us, the trackers won't stand a chance." Valari nodded. "But the clans are proud and don't easily trust outsiders, especially humans and alien nobles." Jace smiled faintly. "That's why we need to show them something real, strength and respect." The next morning, they prepared to leave Haven and journey into the deeper desert. The outpost was a mixture of humans and aliens, united by necessity but wary of outsiders. Valari felt the weight of their eyes, curious and uncertain. Jace secured his gear, checking his weapons and supplies. Valari adjusted her cloak against the hot wind. They mounted hoverbikes and set off, leaving behind the city's protective walls for the wild sands. The desert stretched endlessly. Sand dunes rolled like waves, broken only by rocky outcrops and narrow canyons. Valari breathed in the dry air, feeling both the beauty and danger of this harsh world. After days of travel, they reached the first clan, the Sandstriders, known for their swift riders and fierce warriors. The clan's leader, a tall man named Kalen, met them at the edge of their camp. Kalen studied Valari carefully. "You ask for our help, alien princess. Why should we trust you?" Valari stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "Because the danger we face threatens us all. The Ilarian trackers do not care who they harm." Jace added, "We want peace. We want to protect this land and its people." Kalen looked to his warriors, then back to Valari. After a long pause, he nodded. "We will ride with you, but only if you prove your strength." Valari smiled faintly. "I am ready." Over the next days, Valari trained with the Sandstriders. She learned to ride their swift desert horses, to use their weapons, and to understand their code of honor. Jace watched with quiet pride. Valari's grace and beauty were clear, but it was her courage and determination that earned the respect of the warriors. The clans began to see her not just as a princess, but as one of their own. Word spread quickly. Other clans, including the Dunewalkers and the Stormriders, sent messengers offering support. Valari's cause became a beacon for the desert's scattered peoples. Together, they formed a strong alliance, a united force ready to defend their home. But the trackers were not idle. Their ships darkened the skies more often. Their patrols grew bolder. Valari and Jace knew a final confrontation was near. One night, as the allied clans gathered under the stars, Valari spoke to them all. "This is our home. We fight not for power, but for freedom and peace. Together we will protect the desert and its people." The clans cheered, their voices rising in unity. As the twin moons cast silver light over the camp, Valari felt a deep connection, not only to the desert, but to the people who had become her allies and friends. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her heart and courage that truly shone. The air was heavy with tension as dawn broke over the desert. The twin suns climbed slowly, casting long shadows across the gathered forces. Valari stood at the front of the alliance, humans and desert clans united under one purpose. Her violet eyes reflected the bright light, full of hope and determination. Jace stood beside her, ready for whatever would come. Around them were the riders of the Sandstriders, Dunewalkers, and Stormriders, strong warriors who had pledged to protect their home from the Ilarian Empire's forces. The trackers' ships had appeared on the horizon hours ago, dark shapes against the burning sky. The final battle was about to begin. Valari raised her hand, signaling her forces to advance. The riders surged forward, hoverbikes and horses moving as one across the dunes. The desert seemed to hold its breath. The trackers fired first, their weapons flashing as they tried to break the charge. But the Allied forces were fast and fierce, moving through the sand with skill and power. Valari led the way, her blade shining, like a streak of silver. She fought with all her heart, not as a trapped princess, but as a leader, a protector. Jace fought beside her, covering her as they pushed deeper into the enemy ranks. His quiet strength inspired those around him, and the warriors fought harder, their spirits lifted by the bond between the alien princess and the human scout. The battle raged for hours. Sand flew through the air, ships crashed, and the desert echoed with the sounds of struggle. But slowly the trackers began to fall back. Valari saw the leader of the trackers, a cold-eyed man, commanding the retreat. She knew the fight was not over, but this victory was theirs. As the sun set, painting the sky in deep orange and purple, Valari and Jace stood among their allies. The desert was quiet once more, but the silence was filled with hope. Valari looked around at the faces of those who had fought beside her, humans and aliens united. She smiled softly. "This is our home," she said. "Together, we will protect it." News of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. The story of the alien princess who had been stranded in the desert and risen to become a leader inspired many. Her beauty was no longer just about her appearance. It was the beauty of courage, kindness, and strength. The Alarian Empire sent envoys, ready to talk peace. Valari's name became a symbol of unity between species, a bridge between worlds, once thought too different to connect. Valari chose to stay on Arian 9, building a new home with her friends and allies. The desert was no longer a place of loneliness and danger. It was a land of hope and new beginnings. Jace remained by her side, no longer just a scout, but her closest friend and protector. As the twin moons rose high in the night sky, Valari looked out over the desert that had once threatened her life. Now it was a place she loved deeply. She whispered to the stars, "This is only the beginning." The desert's new dawn had arrived.